at Drift Outfitters in Toronto, one of the best equipped fly shops I think I've been in. It's they got about everything here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Rob Sesta's been running the shop for 3.5 years now, and you know, just before we went live, I was talking to him about how things are going, and he looked at me, rolled his eyes, and said things are really good, really busy. So for an urban downtown shop, you know, it's a fantastic resource for anybody that's in Southern Ontario that needs to get some stuff.
And one of the top guides I've ever had too.
Yeah,
he knows his stuff. He knows his stuff.
Now, Bill, you did a show with him last summer up in Southern Ontario, in the region here. Tell me a little bit about what that experience was like with respect to the fishery and the time that you had on you know, Southern Ontario rivers.
The fishing was outstanding. The scenery, you wouldn't believe how close you are to urban areas, but you feel like you're in the bush.
Yeah.
And the trout waters are absolutely top notch. We ran into some speckled trout and some rainbow trout. The beauty was incredible, and we hit this year. We hit the migration of snapping turtles. They were all over the place. They didn't bother you, but they were all over the place.
Really?
So it was a touch on nature that you just didn't expect. They'd be out laying their eggs. It was crazy good. So yeah, it was quite an experience. I was impressed with how much knowledge Rob had.
Yeah.
Little things he does that makes the difference in your catch or not catch.
Yeah.
He's really somebody to learn from.
Yeah, he's a real master with one of those suspension devices too.
A bobber, you mean?
A bobber and a redworm.
And a redworm, yeah.
That's funny. Well, we are here at Drift. We are going to start doing a regular weekly video podcast. We're going to try to do it on Wednesdays at noon Eastern time, so good morning all you Pacific people. And we're going to just have a casual conversation about fly fishing, what we do for the new fly fisher and fly fishing around the world, really.
Right.
So I was talking to Colin last night, and we've decided that we're going to call this thing Tight Lines and Tailing Loops.
Well, that one's a new one on me.
You know, Bill, you've been with the show a long time, and as a Triple F fly casting instructor, you know, we really value everything that you bring to the table with respect to your fishability, your knowledge, and your teaching moniker. It's huge for our sport, and yeah, so thanks very much. Now, you must be itching. Now, I know you just got back from South Carolina. You must be itching to get out on the water. It's March. Yep. It was 15 degrees Fahrenheit when I got in from the truck today, so it's darn cold.
Yeah.
You looking forward to steelhead?
But I can smell the steelhead.
Yeah.
I can. It's just that time of year. I don't know about you, Mark, but you've been a long winter, and the closer I get, the more excited I get. I get spring fever real bad, and whenever spring fever hits me, it's just fishing. And what we look forward to in Southern Ontario, first part of the year, is our steelhead.
Right. It
doesn't last very long, so I'd rather go after steelhead rather than go to my trout streams.
Right.
So steelhead is really what I'm excited about.
So right now, as I said, it's cold. It's you know, well into the negatives. What is it that, if there aren't already steelhead in the rivers, what is it that brings them in once the springtime happens, once things start to warm up?
Propagation of the species. It's when they spawn. They come in. Actually, they're in right now. Whenever you get a day where it gets above freezing, you get a little bit of runoff, river level rises, they'll run in and set up in their spawning areas.
Right.
And opening day in Southern Ontario is the last Saturday in April. By that time, most of the fish have already spawned, and they're in what they call a drop back situation, which is they've spawned, now they're feeding, getting ready to go back out to the lake.
So ethically, you know, our government, the Ontario government, has set it up such that you're not supposed to target fish on reds, fish that are spawning. Right. Ethically, is that time of year? I mean, last year we missed it. Last year they were so early that, you know, there was only dropbacks in the system, and it was only a week long.
Yeah.
Ethically, is there a problem in your mind's eye fishing all season long for steelhead, and then?
Ethically, yes, if you're going to fish the beds.
Yeah.
You don't need to fish the beds. I'll tell you right now, when you got fish spawning, and you'll see the female flopping sideways, and a male, usually two males are right beside her. just down for them, all the brown trout, the migratory brown trout, and smaller rainbows and other steelhead that have already spawned are sitting back and waiting for the eggs to come, and they're feeding up. So you can leave those spawning fish alone.
Yeah.
You don't need to bother them. Legally, you can do it. If the season's open, you can do it. But ethically, no, don't do it.
Right. And
it's not fair.
Same with walking, right? You got to mind where you're walking the rivers.
Oh yeah.
And
if you see in a river a clean area, and everything else is dark, but there's all this clean stone.
Yeah.
It's gravel. That's called a red. That's a nest.
Right.
Don't walk on it.
It's egg laden.
It's full of eggs.
Right.
You step on it, you're killing fish.
Right. And the fish populations here in southern Ontario and Pennsylvania and any states that border the Great Lakes is really fantastic.
Oh yeah, anything that runs into the Great Lakes will get migratory rainbow trout. There's an argument whether they're steelhead or not.
we won't
get into that because Western Canada gets upset at us. But I'll call them migratory rainbow trout.
Yeah. So what do you look for right away once the weather warms up to actually get out on the water and start? Other than being legal with the season opening, what are you waiting for to pull on those waders and get out?
First rains.
First rains.
When the rain rises up the water, the fish, they know they got to move. They got to move. The ones that are out in the lake, they got to move in.
Yep.
And the ones that are they've already spawned and wanting to get out, they got to leave. So that's when you're going to have active fish. When you got low water, they get held up in all the holes, and they get spooky as crazy.
Yeah.
The water gets clear, they can see you. They're not biting.
Right.
So you're looking for first rains. Now, if you get a lot of rain and the water darkens up too much or gets like mud, give it 2 days. 2 days after a heavy rain, you're going to have the best steelhead fishing of your life.
Yeah. So you and I generally take a week off from our daily pursuits, and
For our fishing.
Yeah. That's when we like to have fun together. I don't mind blowing spots here because Southern Ontario is laden with fantastic streams and tributaries of the Great Lakes. Where do you like to head first in the first of the season?
Well, it depends on if we've had enough rain. If we've had enough rain and I feel that the river levels are high, I will stick close to home, which I live in Hamilton, and the closest to me is Bronte Creek.
Right.
Bronte Creek is excellent. You might have to walk a bit to find them, but when you find them, there's generally lots of them.
Right.
They aren't going to be strewn all over the place like you got in Pennsylvania, but you're going to have hot spots of areas where there's going to be fish. The second place I'd probably go would be the Credit River.
Yep.
The Credit River has sections that are open year round.
Mm-hmm.
So even I've been in January, you get a January thaw and the river rises up because the snow is melting.
Yes.
The fish are going to be hungry.
So a funny story is my very first steelhead, I remember her as clear as day because it was a January fish. It was New Year's Day.
Oh, wow.
And I had talked to our mutual friend John Vaughn about how to do this. This was a number of years ago. And I went down to Bronte. First time ever fishing for steelhead. I had a yarn egg under an indicator. And this fish ate. Bobber went down and just went 75 yards one way, 75 yards the other. And I literally was left holding my rod and my reel seat in one hand and my spool in the other. Everything had blown up. Everything had blown up. I tried to hand line her for what felt like 5 minutes. It was probably only about 15 seconds. But I got to see her, and she was a double-digit steelhead. I called John right after that and said, "Man, this is now what I see when I close my eyes." It was fantastic. She was a fantastic fish.
Yeah, for sure.
We've had some questions sent to us through our Facebook page at the New Fly Fisher. I'm just going to run through some of the questions that people have sent in. If you want to submit questions for next week, please feel free to do so at the New Fly Fisher Facebook page. You can get in touch with us on Instagram and also on YouTube as well. We're always keen to answer questions about fishing, whether it be saltwater, freshwater. We have a steelhead theme today because we are all getting spring fever.
We're all hot to trot for steelhead right now.
Yeah, and Dave from Brampton wants to know, what is your selection for the most effective steelhead flies to have in your box? You go first and then I'll follow up.
I always have a selection of yarn patterns, egg patterns, and I have big egg patterns and very micro, small egg patterns, and that's for clarity of water. If you got dark water, a big egg pattern will show up and it'll be found. When you get clearer water, you want to get smaller and smaller offerings because the fish get spooky.
Right.
I want zonkers, white zonkers,
Deadly.
because you have minnow patterns that are spawning at that time in the same areas as the steelhead, and when they die off, they turn white, and the steelhead eat them.
Right.
So I got zonkers, and I have stone flies, and one particular favorite pattern of mine is a beadhead Kaufman stone. And how you tell a Kaufman stone is it's got rubber legs and an X underneath the actual stone fly itself. It's a black stone fly with crossed over rubber legs.
Yeah, I'm gonna emulate the stonefly, the Kaufman stone, but I like to fish mine weightless.
Okay.
With a piece of shot up the leader,
Right.
strictly
Right.
because I feel that as these stoneflies are being washed down the water, down the river, excuse me, that the natural undulation of the
Right.
creek
We'll tumble them
exactly.
like they would.
Remember when we were fishing the Salmon River in Pulaski, New
Yeah.
York? I was fishing a unweighted Kaufman,
Yeah.
and it was the difference between
Yeah, you were killing
multiple
them.
fish
You had a
versus
good day
not so
there.
many
Yeah,
fish. Yeah.
you had a good day there.
I also bring zonkers along with me as well. White for bright bluebird days,
Right.
and black zonkers.
Right.
And now what I like about the zonker pattern is that the body of it is very reflective of light.
Right.
Right. So that's a real attractor for
That's right, yeah.
for steelhead, and they're predatory as well. If they are post spawn and they're still sticking around their reds, they will feed on minnows that are coming in to try to eat.
Right.
Eat what they've laid. So,
Right.
and you know what? In all honesty, I can never go without a simple unweighted bullybugger. Can't beat it.
Yeah, you can't beat a woolly bugger.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of other patterns you can go along with it, but that's our basic that I always have in my box.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, there's also a number of guides that are in southern Ontario or anywhere you fish that are 95% of the time more than willing to share and to talk about what patterns are working
Right.
on what streams and rivers.
Right.
You know, oftentimes if we bump into guides all the time when we're out, and there's no shame in saying, "Hey, what's working for you today?"
Yeah.
Right? And they'll tell you.
I was a pest on the streams when I was younger. Anybody that was working, I'd go up and say, "What are you doing?" And I don't think I ever had anybody say, turn me away. They're all willing to share.
Yeah, absolutely. So to that, keeping on the theme of fly selection for steelhead, let's talk about tippet material and leader material. I understand that different water conditions dictate different X size of
Right.
tippet that you use. Traditionally, fishing steelhead, what's the heaviest that you'll use?
4X. That's as heavy. A lot of times 5X. Now, when we're saying X, that fly fishing, the leaders were made with sewing, related with sewing, and it's a machine that had an X when they draw the line through to make the thickness,
Yeah.
and they would open up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the higher the X, the thinner the line.
Right.
And so,
So 0X tippet,
0X is about 12 pound test.
Yeah. And then you can go as high as 7 or 8X,
Yeah.
and that you're down into really
Now,
micro leaders.
That said, that's monofilament tippets that we're talking about.
Right.
Now, fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon is a blessing to the steelheader.
Well, I only ever fish fluoro.
Yeah.
I never fish mono. I don't like the give that mono has.
Well, I'm from the age when we didn't have fluoro, and you had to go down to like 1 and 2 pound test, and you lost a lot of fish, but you hooked up a lot of
Right.
fish. But with fluorocarbon, you can go a little heavier. Where I say 5X or 4X is the heaviest, I'll go 3X with fluorocarbon.
Right. So that's about 8 pound. 8.
6 to 8 pound, I'm fine. And with the rods that you got nowadays, that's plenty. That's not going to break.
Right. Question from Denver. Well, we covered clarity and fly selection a little bit. Let's talk about setup. What's your go-to setup for swinging flies? I mean, they're very different between swinging and indicator fishing.
Yeah.
What's your go-to rig for a swinging situation?
Now it depends. You got to look at the river situation. I did a fall steelheading show a couple years back, and we had pretty good running water. So I had to use what are called poly leaders, which are just sinking leaders, and they're type 1 through 6. The higher the number, the faster it sinks.
Right.
And so you have to determine your water, whether it's fast flowing water, slow flowing water, or medium, and determine which poly leader you put on. They're generally about 10 feet long, okay? Yeah, and they hook on the loop of your fly line, loop the loop. Then you add about 2 to 3 feet of straight 8 or 10 pound test. This is when the size of the leader really doesn't matter, because the first thing that reaches the fish is the fly. They don't see the leader, they just see the fly.
Right.
So 3 feet of 8 to 10 to 12 pound test, and then you're flying.
Right.
Now, how you deal with that is the faster the water, the higher the density that you want that to sink. If it's slow water, you go with a 1 or a 2, which is you want the fly to go just above the bottom of the river. You don't want it to drag on the bottom, but you want it like 6 inches above and ticking every once in a while. That's where the fish will be. They lay down there, and they anything goes by them like that, it'll instill a strike.
Right. So, and you use fluorocarbon or mono on that tippet?
Generally just mono, because I'm not concerned. Fluorocarbon has the same light refraction as water, so it basically disappears. Mono doesn't. Mono, you can see it, but the way that the fly is being presented, the fly is the first thing that the fish sees. They don't see it.
Right.
When you're indicator fishing, the tippet could be the first thing that hits the fish.
Yeah.
And the fly is tumbling. So I'm not concerned about it, and they don't seem to be leader shy when they're on the swing. Now,
it's more aggression, right?
It's aggression. That's when you're swinging flies, you're after the most aggressive fish in the river. The one that's spooky, he's not going to hit anything.
I remember you and I were fishing the Ganaraska River a couple of springs ago, and we were indicator fishing. I was actually fishing a white zonker under an indicator.
You got some really nice fish.
And steelhead were coming up and hitting the indicator. I had an orange thingamabobber on, and they came up and they were actually striking the indicator, and that's when I switched over to swinging flies. Right. And it was fantastic.
Yeah, then you got when that happens, your indicator gets hit. These fish are aggressive now. Yep. They're feeding. Yep. They're eating. These are drop back. Those were drop back. They'd already spawned. They're hungry. They're ready to go back out to the lake. So they got to feed up.
All right. Conversely, let's talk about your setup for nymphing.
Generally, now.
All right, let's separate this between nymphing under an indicator and Euro nymphing or check nymphing.
Indicator is what I know most. I know how to Euro nymph, but I don't do it very often.
I don't do it very often.
Yeah, it's a completely different thing. What I generally do is my leader is generally the same length as my rod. Now, that said, I don't use a 9-foot rod when I'm steelheaded. I use an 11.5 foot. So my leader is 11.5 feet long. I weight the line rather than the fly. So 14 to 16 inches from my fly, I have my split shot, and I try to use the minimal amount to get my fly down near the bottom. You don't want it so heavy it goes thunk and sticks to the bottom, and you don't want it so light that it's not making it down to where the fish are.
Right.
You don't want the flies to go over top of the fish, because they're not looking up, they're looking down.
Right.
So I got the minimal amount of split shot, 14 to 16 inches, then my fly, and where regulations allow it, I will put another piece of tippet on the bend of my fly and then tie a second fly on.
Right.
So basically that's it.
Right. With respect to the length of your leader, you said you like it as long as the rod.
As
general.
In general.
I was taught that if you know the depth of the water, do 1.5 times the depth of the water.
That's where you place your indicator.
Yes,
1.5
exactly.
times the depth of the water.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So if you're in a 4-foot situation, you're going to have a 6-foot. You're going to put your indicator 6 feet up your leader.
And water clarity will dictate to the length of your leader. You might have, if you got extremely clear water, you might have to lengthen your leader to keep your indicator away from where the fish are, because they can see it a long way coming, and if it's coming down their feeding lane, you'll see them move right out of the way.
Yeah.
So you have to lengthen up, get back a little farther, cast out, keep your indicator on this side of the fish, and tumble it at the same rate, speed of the water.
When you begin fishing a pool that you know might have has steelhead in it, what's your approach tactic? Do you like to fish starting closer to your person, or do you start in the middle or the deepest area? Or what do you do?
Right at your feet. A lot of times, when you approach any river, look at your feet first. A lot of times, especially in the case of brown trout, they will feed within a couple inches of the bank, because a lot of bugs fall in there.
Yep.
They'll come in and feed right there. So cast in close to yourself, work your way out to as far as you can, then take a step in.
Yeah.
Do the same thing. Work it, take a step in. You work your way across, straight across till you can't go any farther, or you've worked the whole hole. You come out, take 2 steps downstream.
Right.
And repeat what you're doing. It's called zoning.
Right, and that works for nymphing as well as swinging streamers and swinging flies.
Swinging flies, yeah.
So you're effectively picking apart the river such that, if this is your fish sitting in a run, water's going this way, you want the fly to swing in front of the fish.
That's right.
You don't want the fly to swing over the top, over the back of the fish.
Yeah, no, that'll put a fish down in a second.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I can't see behind me. I don't know about you, but I can't see what's going on behind me.
No.
So,
yeah.
Okay, that's fantastic. So to that, you see fish laying in pools. You see them laying in the hydro cushions of rocks,
right,
which is in front of the rock.
Yeah. Well, that we can talk about too, because not many people know that.
Well, okay, so let's do that right now. Let's talk about positioning of steelhead throughout the river.
Right. Generally, what I look for in a river situation, when I first come and look, I'm looking for seams, current seams. And what a current seam is 2 differing speeds of water that meet.
Right.
And you'll have slow water going against fast water. And generally, you'll see bubbles going down. That's the seam. That's where the food is being funneled.
Right.
The food is being funneled there, and the fish will stay on the calm side of that seam.
The slower water side,
because he doesn't use as much energy to hold its position. Move in when they see something, grab it, and come back out.
Right.
Okay? Seams are caused by current breaks. Something's going to break the water, whether it be a rock, a stick, a stump, anything. You'll see it breaking around and have that seam.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the case of a big rock that you see the nice seams coming down, I'll work the seams on each side of the rock, but then I'll go ahead into the front. And what happens is the water pushes against the rock and causes, I call it a pillow, it's called a hydro cushion. The water's just more or less still right there, directly in front of the rock. Their tails will actually be touching the rock.
Yeah.
And then I work there. When I was in Wyoming, I ran into that situation on one of the creeks down there that it was crazy. It was the first time I ever run into it. My first fish I took was a big fish. The second fish I took was a little bit smaller. Third fish, every fish I took out, then the next dominant fish moved in that spot. Because that was a prime feeding area.
Right. I one of the first times I ever caught a fish in a hydro cushion was out on the Hunt River in Labrador.
Yeah.
Lee Peddle, the guide, said, swing that fly. We were swinging wet flies at the time. Swing that fly in front of the rock, and I thought he was crazy.
Yeah.
And sure enough, boom, fish came up, ate, and it was a dance to remember.
Especially in Labrador, they always got big rocks underneath.
Yeah.
So you got lots of hydro cushions you can't even see.
Exactly. So what about fishing the back eddy behind a rock? Do you find that fish will sit in that back eddy facing downstream?
The closer to the rock is the dominant fish, because that's where the food first deflects, and they got first shot at it.
Yeah.
Further back, you're going to get less dominant fish, which means smaller fish.
Right.
But there will be all the way down. If you take a big fish, go back and work that a little bit further back, it will be the next fish, and so on. It's like a train.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about indicator fishing with respect to drifts. These fish, especially in clear water, can be extremely spooky.
Yeah.
how vital is it to have a drag-free drift, in your opinion?
It's every bit as important as a drag-free drift for a dry fly. The nymphing, let me put it this way. A mayfly is mostly what they're eating, or stoneflies is what they're eating. When they break off from the rock, they don't swim very well. All they do is stick their arms out trying to grab something. They tumble. So that's what you got to try to do with your nymph. If your nymph is moving like it's swimming, unless it's a swimming nymph like an Isonychia, and they're cueing in on that, they're going to reject it because it doesn't look natural.
Right, and that goes back to my comment earlier about the Kaufman stonefly,
right,
and why I generally don't fish it weighted.
Right,
right, is because it has that natural tumble ability, which I personally I think is more effective for spookier fish.
Yeah. And that you have to determine that yourself. I don't mind a little bit of like a bead head on a nymph, but I don't want one with under the on the hook that's been wrapped with lead.
Yeah.
I don't want that.
It's too unnatural. Isn't it?
Yeah, because it goes directly down and holds tight on the bottom.
Now that's not to say though that every single drift that you do has to be drag free. I mean,
No.
You get fish that are aggressive; they're going to eat. They're going to eat.
Sometimes,
to maximize your chances.
Sometimes it's you just get the luck of the Irish and you got an aggressive fish.
Right, right. What about sight casting? What about sight casting for? This is a fantastic question from Jen here in Toronto. She is asking about sight casting for steelhead. Is it possible, for one, or is it the old adage that if they see you, or if you see them, they can see you? What do you think?
Well, there's merit to both what you say, but yes, you can do it. What you have to do if you're sight casting for a steelhead, if it's off-colored water, if you steelhead for a while, you soon learn what fish look like in turbid water.
Yeah.
So once you determine where they are, your best bet is to always stay behind them if you can, and back up and back to yourself.
Yep.
Or
Sorry, that's my phone's going
yeah,
crazy
if I'm
here.
going, where am I doing this? Come
There
on.
we go, it's
Okay,
over.
there we go. Yeah. Anyway, so I like to stay behind them, like you said, Mark. When a fish is facing, they're always facing upstream, and they got like a cone of sight. They can see in front of them pretty good, above them, and on the side.
Right.
They don't see behind them very well.
Right.
So you stay behind them, or you get directly above them, way out of their sight, and swing a fly to them. That's the other way of doing it.
Right. So, but you have to be able to see these fish first and foremost.
Right. So a good set of sunglasses.
Right. And my view on sunglasses is twofold. Number one is I always have them with me.
Yeah.
Even if it's pouring rain,
Yeah.
I'll still. They left a message. Even if it's pouring with rain, I always wear my sunglasses. Number one, because I can see into the river or into the lake,
Right.
to see structure,
Right.
to see whatever.
Right.
And number
just
two,
waiting,
it's a safety factor.
Yeah, and waiting.
How many times have you taken a fly in the face?
Yeah.
I mean, your eyes are designed very well such that they're inset in your head, and it's rare that you actually will get a hook in the eye, but it comes to way
Right.
too close to comfort.
Right.
What color do you like in polarization?
Well, I got generally because I steelhead a lot of, and I'm in the north. The brown ones are generally what I like, gray or brown. In the south, they have the amber glasses because it's a different kind of light, and it's always angled differently. So the amber works better for, say, bonefish, fish
Fish in the
tarpon,
flats, yeah.
fish in the flats. It's better for that. The dark glasses you can't see as well, but. My thing about if you're going to buy sunglasses, buy a quality set. The ones that are cheap, they say they're polarized, but you'll see double. If you're looking into the water, you'll see two images rather than one.
Yeah.
So the quality really matters, and it really makes a difference in what you can or can't see.
You know, it's the old adage that you get what you pay for when it comes to sunglasses.
Yeah.
There are fantastic brands out there that we use all the time. Costa Del Mar, Smith. These Sundogs, which is a Canadian company,
Yeah.
which are fantastic. Do your research and choose the price point that's right for you, the color that's right for you, and for heaven's sake, do yourself a favor. Always wear them. Always. It doesn't take much to get used to And some of them are even adjustable with different light sensors, right? So the lighter it is, the darker they go, and so on and so forth.
But the polarization is what you need.
Right, right. How good is the steelheading in Toronto?
People think. I did a show on the Credit River once, and when the camera was down and it was a beautiful river, we put the drone up, and as soon as it got above the horizon, there was a CN Tower.
Oh, right here.
Right here, right in Mississauga, Ontario, is excellent steelhead fishing.
Well, I hooked the largest steelhead of my career in a river 15 minutes from my house. I live in downtown Toronto, 15 minutes from my house, called the Humber River.
Right.
And she was so big that she actually moved rocks. When she jumped 4 times, you could hear the rocks tumbling down.
Oh, wow.
I broke her off, and it was a early May fish. I broke her off, and that was it. I was done. I went out on a high note. So the fishing in around southern Ontario for steelhead is fantastic.
You got the Credit River, Bronte Creek, Ganaraska, Humber, Wilmot, Bowmanville. But right there, I've just named off 7 or 8 rivers that are within a short driving distance of the city of Toronto.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know what? Some of them, check your regulations, but some of them you can fish all season long.
Right. Yeah. Check your regs. I just saw a story the other day. 2 guys on the Ganaraska were out of season. $1,000 each they got fined.
That's good.
And lost their rod and reel.
That's good. That's good. Also of importance is to I always forget about this, and I have to do it when I get home today. Is if your outdoors card has expired, make sure that you renew it. I generally do it 1st of January, just out of habit. I haven't done it yet this year. Haven't been fishing. Been too busy, working with the new fly fisher to get out. But I'm
lucky. I'm over 65.
You don't have to do it.
I don't have to
do it.
Not in Ontario. I have to do it other provinces and states, but not in Ontario.
Yeah. So that's a fantastic overview of the upcoming steelhead season that we have. If there's anything that you want us to cover in the future, please don't hesitate to drop us a line anyway. Bill, we've got an exciting year coming up. Tell me a little bit about what you're looking forward to with respect to the new fly fisher and hosting shows. Yeah,
I hope to do a little Atlantic salmon this year. I never got to do it last year, which wasn't my turn, and we have to take turns for the lodges. But I love Atlantic salmon fishing. Again, getting back up into Algoma, there's so much good fishing up there. So much good fishing, and we got some stuff in the States, don't we, this year?
Oh yeah, we do. We're going to be doing a lot in Wyoming, a lot in looking at Maine, looking at all kinds of different unique fisheries in the States, as well as one of the things that I love to do is catch big largemouth bass, big Florida strain largemouth bass on poppers and things like that. And it looks like we're going to try to expand into some more saltwater stuff in the Bahamas and Belize. There's a large portion of what we should be doing as movers of people to drive tourism and to make viewers aware of what's possible out there. A big portion of that, in my opinion, is saltwater. But you know what I'm really excited about is trout here in Ontario.
Right.
Trout in the West, small stream stuff.
Yes,
that you're excellent at it, and
that's what we're going to concentrate a little more on this year, because we got such a good reaction from, for instance, the show I did with Rob, small stream. This is the kind of stuff the average Joe can get to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So a couple of things that is of importance to our viewers is, number one is our availability for TV shows on demand. So in the US, we are on Amazon Prime, and then the Orvis Guide to Fly Fishing as well, which brings me to that point, is that we are shooting a second season of the Orvis Guide to Fly Fishing with Tom Rosenbauer now. So Tom is, as you know, the marketing manager for Orvis, a fantastic lifestyle company that does great things in the world of fly fishing. Right. So you can expect a new season of the Orvis Guide to Fly Fishing coming in January 2020. All of our shows, including the one you did last week with Rob here at the shop, all get posted on YouTube as well, right?
As soon as they are aired on TV, Then they go to YouTube.
Exactly. So Saturday mornings, you can see the latest premiere of the show that aired that week on YouTube. This week, on Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, you can relive my adventure up in Algoma country at Strikers Point Lodge. Right. It's also part in Sunset Country as well. But I managed to poke my largest northern pike of my career, taping out at just over 45 inches. It was a soul-stirring experience, Bill. Yes. She ate right at the boat, and I was by myself with our fantastic camera guy Ryan Pizzacalla, and managed to net her on my own. So that show airs this Saturday at 9 a.m. And for those who may have missed it last week, we actually tonight on Facebook we will have the Milton Lake Lodge show where. Have you ever had the CUDA strip for northerns?
Oh yeah.
It's fantastically fun.
Yeah.
You know, put the rod under your arm and just reef those flies in as fast as you can for the reaction strike.
Do that for striper bass too.
Yeah.
Fast as you can get in it.
Yeah. So that's on tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time, right here on this Facebook channel as well. So you can watch that live as it premieres. Don't forget about our Algoma Best Catch Contest. Go to algomacountry.com. You can enter to win fantastic Yeti prizes. The grand prize is a Yeti Panga 28, which is the most durable backpack. Jeremy and I, our camera guy, we fight over this backpack all the time. I think it's important for me to have it. He thinks it's important for the cameras, all that stuff. So go in, enter your photo there, or you can enter it on our Facebook page as well to win Yeti Panga and a GoPro 7, which is another one of the main prizes as well.
Talk about a good camera.
Oh man, it's amazing.
Excellent, amazing.
Yeah. Colin took it down to Chile last month when he went down on a vacation, and some of the imagery that he managed to get out of his Chile vacation is just fantastic.
Right,
just fantastic. So. Next week we will be Facebook Live, hopefully from Grand River Outfitters. Rob doesn't know that yet, but there you go, Robbie. I'll be making my way down to Fergus to talk with some of the guys at Grand River. And please do keep in touch via Facebook, Instagram, and of course subscribe to our YouTube channel for all things fly fishing. There's tons of tips and tricks going on all the time. So thanks, Bill.
Yep.
Fantastic.